Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Today I have with me a sizzler of a session and to talk all about it, about who is behind the SB 403 bill, the players, the motives, the intent, and what they are hoping is an outcome. And there are lots of other development that might completely derail this. To understand all these things, allow me to introduce the guest of the day, Utpal. Always think he is Utpal Dutt. Utsav Chakrabarti. Utsav, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar, namaskar.
By the way, I'm a great admirer of Utpal Dutt. So you should think of that as a compliment that I always think
Me
of
too.
as Utpal.
Me too. I grew up watching Utpal Dutt movies, even though ideologically we may be slightly on the different plane. But Utpal Dutt, by the way, was a very avowed old-time communist. You know, the kind of
Yes,
communist
yes.
who actually read Karl Marx. But that's besides the point.
So on to more serious matters. Utsav, you've been doing some research and looking into, first of all, an Afghan American wants to pass a caste bill on Hindus, and the whole basis of this is a dubious document that has been written by, guess what, mostly Muslims, and one person who is probably calling herself as Dalit, but a lot of question marks around that person also. And all this stuff appears to have been funded from some specific source. We're going to take a deep dive into all these things. Utsav, I yield the floor to you. Take it away, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sri. We were really looking at some of the pattern of behavior emerging from the individuals that have been pushing the caste narrative in America. So what we have noticing is that whether it is the SB 403 in California or the previous, the Seattle and the California State University agendas, caste-driven agendas, what we are observing is that since 2014, there is a pattern of cyber social behavior emerging from these actors who are pushing this narrative. I mean, there are people who are supporting it who can be of multiple backgrounds and different shades of ideologies, but those who are actually driving this narrative have commonly exhibited cyber social behavior, which has, number one, shared hatred for Hindus, Indian Americans, American Hindus, and in general India. On multiple occasions, they have expressed a geopolitically motivated desire to target India and Indian Americans. In social media, in their speeches, and there are multiple outlets that have been constantly documenting it, and I'm hoping that these documentations will show up whenever there is a serious conversation on this issue. These individuals and groups have shown sympathy, shared association with three globally recognized terror movements in the Indian subcontinent, which has one thing in common. That is direct support from Islamabad. So these three globally recognized terror movements are the Kashmir Jihad movement, the Maoist movement, and the Khalistani movement. So what you are seeing here is that the same actors and individuals who have otherwise exhibited for the last almost 8 years a serious support for three major terror movements in India that are globally recognized by the UN and the US, abused India and Indian Americans, and abused Hindus. All these three groups are converging together to create a support structure and some form of legislative impetus in support of the so-called caste resolution, even though in reality it is actually aimed at promoting caste discrimination in America. And that's, we have had conversations on that, on the bill itself, I'm sure you're on your show before with other individuals and groups. So it is important for us to actually identify these individuals and identify the pattern of behavior that is coming out of them. And it is important to draw some conclusions. America is a country where foreign influence operations and foreign interference is looked upon very seriously in the legislative process. We saw that during Trump's election. We saw that later on. So I think this is something that people who are looking into this, both from the federal and the state level, should really consider investigating.
Thank you so much. And with your permission, I can start the slideshow going now.
Please.
Here we go. Go ahead.
So as I noted, if you go to the next slide, So what basically I'm trying to say here is that the state of California should really investigate the people who are behind this and pushing this, because they may end up, and this is something that's going to be disastrous for America in general, they may end up creating laws that are actually foreign influence operations aimed at specific communities. In this case, it will be the Hindu American and the South Asian Indian American communities. But that would be a really sad precedence in America for some state as big as California, as powerful as California, to actually bring in laws which are serving somebody else's interest outside the geographical limits of America. Go to the next slide, please. So we are going to look at the whole issue, not just from the perspective of SB 403, which is the latest that is coming out on that issue, but also from the origin of where it all starts, which is the 2018 Equality Labs quote unquote survey. In reality, it was an unscientific, bogus survey that has been pretty much acknowledged everywhere, except by the legislative forces. So in that original report, if you see the research that has been done by Disinfo Lab, they've clearly pointed out that the original acknowledgement list, which has later been updated and purged, included key individuals and names of groups that have direct links to both Pakistan-sponsored radical Islamist groups as well as to Khalistani groups. Go to the next slide, please. So the names that we will look at today are going to be Amar Shergill, who is one of the key proponents of the resolution in California, SB 403, Equality Labs, Huma Dar, and Tenmori Soundarajan, who is the founder and the fountainhead of all this from the Equality Labs.
She's the face. I mean, Utsav, she is the face. Let's accept it. Somebody else, Katputli nachara hai usko.
Ha. That is true.
Yeah.
And we can also, at some point, there could be a show about how the pullers of the string of Tenmori Soundarajan have changed over the years. Starting with some extremist fundamentalist Christian groups, to eventually the Khalistanis and later on the Pakistani state. How the control has shifted within Equality Labs itself. But today, for today's purposes, we are going to look at Amar Shergill, Equality Labs, Huma Dar, and Tenmori. At another point, we can also look at what the drivers of the Seattle case, which has a Maoist component to it, because of the strong presence of pro-Maoist political elements in Seattle. But that's for another presentation. We can look at Kshama Sawant and her connections at another point of time. Please go ahead. Next slide. So let's look at Amar Shergill, because he's one of the key drivers of this SB 403, and he has on multiple occasions targeted American Hindu communities, targeted Indian Americans. In fact, just yesterday, he had actually written an article where he accused every Indian American who's opposing SB 403 as Trump supporter. Now, that might make many people happy, but that is not the fact. And in California, that is certainly not going to be helpful to the Indian American community.
At this point, I just want to just one brief observation. Guys, I am an independent. In fact, to prove that I'm independent, yesterday I did an interview with Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, and I'll be putting out that interview. Okay, so not everybody is going to be drinking this kind of a Kool-Aid that Shergill puts. Also, he has some dubious links with people in the Republican Party, which we will talk about a little bit later. Go back to you, Utsav.
Yeah, so let's look at Amar Shergill. But before we do that, we need to look at this individual on the top left of the diagram that you see, Bhajan Singh Bhinder. Because Bhajan Singh Bhinder's name starts emerging as a key ally and a supporter of Equality Labs since the time around 2012, 2013. It's the same time in which this whole disinformation operation against India exploded on multiple fronts, whether it is on Kashmir, Khalistan, or on this quote-unquote Dalit issue. So Bhajan Singh Bhinder originally is well known to be a Khalistani supporter. He was tracked and caught trying to buy weapons, both small arms as well as Stinger missiles, which are extremely dangerous and has absolutely no civilian use. He was caught trying to buy and procure those for the Khalistanis about 20 years ago. So this is an individual who is a known Khalistani actor. He ran efforts and initiatives in support of Khalistanis, who joins hands with Equality Labs and 𝙤𝙧𝙤𝙪𝙤 Sandararajan. First, they started doing it through OFMI. It was a group that was for the minorities of India, quote unquote. But later on, there was more direct and implicit support that emerged between these two groups. Now, Amar Shergill is somebody who has been very closely associated with Bhajan Singh Bhinder. So if you go to the next page, no, the one before. Yes. So Shergill and Bhinder's association goes back over a decade. And they served as the board members of American Sikh Political Affairs Association, the Sikh Political Action Committee, or the CPAC, and worked with the Sacramento Valley Charter School System together, both of them. And Bhinder has been accused in the past, as I said, of trying to procure C4 explosives as well as Stinger missiles, which have absolutely no civilian use. And they have together worked as spokesperson of Sikh Youth of America, which is a group that is closely tied with the Khalistan movement. So all these details are actually available with the State Department and with the law enforcement. But despite that, these individuals have been openly working in support of not just SB 403, but other anti-India efforts and activities in conjunction with Equality Labs. Next one, please. And there are lots of evidences of Equality Labs actually sharing platform with Bhajan Singh Bhinder as well as with Peter Frederick, who also is a close associate of Bhajan Singh Bhinder. In the past, we have shown it through social media, but on this particular presentation, we are going to show this picture of, you can see in the blue, 𝙤𝙧𝙤𝙪𝙤 Sandararajan at a briefing. And on the right side, you see three members of the Khalistan support movement of SFJ, Sikhs for Justice, which is again a banned movement, openly supports violence, and has been accused of trying to kill people as well as commit acts of violence within India. So you have these three individuals marked in the red, who are also Khalistanis, sharing a platform with 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙪𝙤.
Utsav, 1 second. Just go back 1 second, please. Go to the previous slide. Utsav, the second Sardarji from the right, was he not the one who essentially threatened Lalit Jha?
That is the person who threatened Lalit Jha. You are absolutely right. Very good observation, Sri.
Thank you.
He is from Washington, D.C. area. And I'm very impressed by your ability to point that out at such a short glimpse of the individual. Great work.
Thank you.
So you can see this is a pattern. And this is just one of the movements. I pointed out that there are three major terror movements that are trying to emerge in the Indian subcontinent, have significant history of violence in the Indian subcontinent, acknowledged by the world, that are showing sympathy for these kinds of resolutions. So there is a pattern emerging here. Next slide, please. So next one, we are going to look at the connection of Equality Labs and these quote unquote caste supporting groups to an individual called Huma Dar, daughter of a Pakistani military officer who was accused of participating in the 1971 genocide in Bangladesh, who has a long record of Hindu phobia. And again, we have pointed that out in multiple social media posts, who has a long record of actually operating in support of Kashmiri separatists. If you look at the next slide, and then we can come back to this slide again. The next one again. Yes, so I just wanted to show this slide because I want people to know that people like Huma Dar are not hiding their associations. They have been openly exhibiting support for individuals like Burhan Wani, who was killed by the Indian Army, who is a designated terrorist from Hizbul Mujahideen, which is a designated terrorist organization even in the United States. So people like Huma Dar are not even hiding their association with designated terrorist groups or sympathies for them. And if you go back 2 slides, she's one of the advisory board members of Equality Lab when it made the 2018 caste survey report. So imagine this: out of nowhere, this Pakistani with a known hatred for India, who supports a terror organization, emerges as one of the advisory board members of this quote unquote caste reading organization. Please go ahead.
Utsav, isn't Natasha Dar, the daughter of Huma Dar, also a co-writer of this report?
That's correct, and that's what I was going to go next.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
these guys are, if you see the this box at the bottom, Natasha Dar, she's one of the authors of the caste survey. So you cannot get it any clearer than this. The key evidences that are being used to push this caste narrative in Seattle, in California, are being authored by individuals who are directly linked to separatist movements in India, in this case the Kashmiri Islamists, are directly linked to Khalistanis, and also have openly on record through their social internet behavior supported terrorists. I don't know what more it takes. I mean, it took far less to show that Russia interfered in American elections, actually. so I don't know what it would take for observers to notice these connections. So next slide, please.
So just 1 second. Viewers, please like this video. This is very important information being shared after days and days of research work. We are documenting what is out there in the public space. There is nothing here that's made up, unlike the Equality Labs report, where there are some serious flaws. You can't even do a survey like the way that has been done and then pass it off and somehow try to, convince lawmakers to do, and also all in stealth mode. All sorts of insidious ways in which they have tried to push this thing. But most important thing is, people need to read this. This affects the future of your children, their children. If you let them have their way, they want to obliterate Sanatana Dharma. That's what they want to do. And the thing is, they are using our own sepoys to do that. Our own sepoys are brainless, yes, but they are our sepoys. They may be idiots, but they are our idiots. We have to do another work to try and tell them that you are an idiot. But that is a process that will happen later. First, we need to stop this monster. So I just request every one of you to please like this video. Hopefully it will go viral. Utsav is suffering from a bad cold, but he has managed to come, and we wanted to really make this presentation. There are only 7 or 8 days left before the California Judiciary Committee starts looking at this. This has to be nipped in the bud, full of lies and innuendos. Please go back, Utsav. Sorry about that.
No. Thank you for putting this out there, because people do need to understand that there are two things that are actually being used here that are blind spots for the Indian American community, especially the Hindu American, because caste is something that can be very easily weaponized against Hindu Americans. It's a colonial legacy that has been again and again weaponized in the Indian subcontinent, and now it is being done here. And the second thing I wanted to highlight is that people are often very complacent about this kind of resolutions, because they feel, and I have heard this from many people, they feel that they are based on so many flimsy factual evidences that they will fall apart in the court of law. And I have that, no, Utsavji, don't worry. This is so flimsy, this is so politically driven that it's not going to stand in the court of law. Absolutely true. It will not stand in the court of law, and you will see that in the next coming few months. But the damage will be done by innuendos and association. The damage has already been done in Seattle now. In Seattle, if you have a Hindu name, it is highly likely that people will look at you as, by default, a casteist, because now the narrative has been seeded. And that is something that will be disastrous for our future generations, because the goal here is not to actually legally target you, which it can also happen. The goal here is to make sure that you become Hindus, and Hindu Americans become toxic. And that is the objective that is being pushed here. And it's been very cleverly done, because caste is something that can be weaponized very easily. Next slide, please. The next one. So as you can see here, there are 3-4 elements within this movement that are clearly connected to the Khalistanis, the Kashmiri separatists. Additionally, if you look at the people who co-authored the 2018 caste survey, you will start finding people like Mari Zwick, who is also known as Valli Karunakaran. She uses both these names. She's one of the directors of Two Circles, which is a Islamist media outlet, which was founded by Kashif-ul-Huda, another Islamist with deep roots in Pakistan and connections to IAMC. We have done a show on IAMC before, Indian American Muslim Council. And if you go to the next slide, I can show you that Kashif-ul-Huda has openly on many occasions expressed sympathy and support for an ISIS recruiter named Zakir Naik. In fact, Zakir Naik's TV channel is banned in the United States because of its known association for ISIS recruitment. And Zakir Naik himself is not allowed in India anymore. He fled India and he's living in Malaysia at this point of time. So you can see that there is this whole network of bad actors who have one thing shared amongst them: state patronage from Pakistan and a rabid hatred for Hindus and India. That's the only thing that keeps them together and binds them together, that are pushing this narrative. So just wanted to put this out there. And I know that many people in California may not want to hear this because it breaks their narratives that they believe in. But these are the facts, and it's important for people to know this. Next one, please. So I just want to point one more thing. And this is again another member, Sudhamali Ganga, who is part of the Equality Lab's original report and acknowledgement list whose name was removed later on. These individuals who claim to be supporting removal of caste discrimination and claim adjacency to Dalits, most of them are not Dalits, but they claim Dalit adjacency, they themselves are anti-Dalit. And you can see this, that people like Sudhamali Ganga on record have said that people who quote unquote are of Dalit background who follow Hinduism are more stupid. So basically, they really do not care about anything else except one thing, which is hatred for Hindus and hatred for India. So they badmouth Dalits who are not on the same platform as them. So this is a pattern that we need to look into, and I think this is the end of the slideshow for us. But I'm open to questions, Sri, and if audiences have any questions, I don't know if we are live on this.
Yeah, we're looking up there were a fair amount of comments, and we'll look up and see if there's any questions. But I have a more philosophical question, Utsav. This Equality Labs has become, there's a tagline for a local TV station called Channel 7 News. The tagline goes like this: here, there, everywhere. She has become to me an epitome of that tagline: here, there, everywhere. There is a Toronto district, school district, resolution. This lady is there. She's in Seattle. She's in California. I mean, this cannot come without some massive funding that is being pushed in. Who are these funders? Because we know that Pakistan is bankrupt. It might not be the state of Pakistan, although ISI has an entity of its own. We don't know if funding is coming from there. We don't know if it's coming from Muslim Brotherhood. We don't know if it's coming from individuals like George Soros, who believes in an open society, may not believe in this. I mean, whatever. We don't even know what that guy believes in. Utsav, what are your guesses on where all this money is coming from?
Very good question. So, Shri, you will see that, organizations that are operating in this education space or public advocacy space usually are tax-exempted organizations whose tax and donations are open for public scrutiny. Our organization, Hindu Action, 501c3, within a year you will see who donated to us and what our tax status is. True about most Hindu organizations who are trying to fight this SB 403 or these, quote unquote caste resolutions, whether it is COHNA, whether it is HF, you name it. All open organizations with open funding sources that can be scrutinized. Not so much for Equality Labs. It is not a 501c3 organization. Its donors and its tax status is not visible to the people. So that begs a question: where is the money coming from? And why do they don't want to show it? Another interesting observation we should all look at. Between 2018 and 2021, the head of Equality Labs, founded by Soundarajan, Tenmori Soundarajan, the head was a girl named Sharmin Hussain, again, a Muslim Brotherhood empathizer, who was also part of the Open Society Foundation. She was an Open Society Fellow, George Soros's organization. So out of nowhere, you see this insertion of these quote unquote George Soros lackeys into movements like this, which begs the question, why so? It's not easy for somebody who doesn't have a funding source, who has no backing, just show up in cities like Seattle, in Toronto, in parts of California, and have so much influence on lawmakers. So you will see that once we peel off these layers, you will see there are backers in America with deep pockets that are pushing this narrative. There are backers in other parts of the world who are pushing this narrative. It doesn't have to be ISI or Islamabad. However, I do believe that the domain knowledge and the domain expertise, how to utilize fault lines in the American Hindu communities, how to utilize fault lines from the Indian subcontinent and weaponize them, those domain expertise and domain knowledge is, however, coming from Islamabad, from Pakistan, or their supporters and their extensions that are living in America. That part I'm more and more confident about.
At this point of time, I want to put up a social media slide that has been, coming out of Europe. So clearly, the protests against SB 403 have really made a difference. Can you put up that other social media? Here we go. This is an individual that I think lives and works out of Sweden, and he has been known to have some very anti-Hindu feelings. You can find him, I think, on some TV channels in India also. And read what he's trying to say. The point of all the protesters there, it wasn't, nobody asked them what their caste was or what they were for. In fact, there are people who are not even Indian American heritage. In fact, the picture there says it. The person that I'm interviewing, he says that he is not a Hindu. He's an average American who's concerned about the divisiveness being soared by this SB 403. And people don't even, guy is not even capable of doing that kind of research. And he is saying that what I'm saying is wrong. Anyway, the underlying message here is that for the longest time, Hindus were docile, dormant, and they used to ignore all these things. They say, okay, I'm going to just look at what I can do and keep going in that silo-like fashion. Now, Indian Americans, Hindus are being dragged out because you don't believe in taking up arms to defend yourself. These arms are not, I'm not talking about swords and spears and guns. Even just getting on the social media and rebutting these people with facts, which is exactly what we are doing. Okay, but we can't do this thing without the silent majority's help. It doesn't hurt for you to retweet a tweet that, I put out or Utsav puts out. In your personal capacity, you are actually a Hindu and you are being exposed for who you believe or what you believe in. Understand this, guys. Many people who are working in organizations think, oh, if I make a statement, even if I like something, if I comment something, if I retweet something, then it might be held against me in a future job opportunity. You can do anything you want in your personal capacity. Nobody can prevent you from expressing your opinions as a personal capacity. I'm not a lawyer, by the way. Don't quote me on this. But my basic belief is, as a person, you are allowed your belief, your religion, and what you think is right in the society. And here's a blatant abuse of the fact that you tend to remain silent. See, that is what I'm really concerned about.
Shri, I would go ahead and say that those who are afraid of speaking out against this because they think that they will be targeted or victimized at their job, that itself should be worry them. Because what is going to be legislated on eventually will make it toxic for them to be just themselves. If they are afraid that this is going to cause discrimination against them, they should be even more afraid of the fact that once these legislations are passed and actually weaponized, they will not be hired because by the simple fact that they have a Hindu name. That is literally where this will end. Their kids cannot be openly saying that they are Hindus because they will be discriminated against just for the fact that they are Indian Americans or Hindu Americans. If you listen to the testimonies that are being given in many of these cases in the hearing, whether it was in Seattle, it is targeted pure Hinduphobia that is being promoted under the guise of these caste legislations, which are written very cleverly, though. They do not mention Hindu or they do not mention India because they know that immediately those resolutions will fall apart. So they bring a larger geographical term called South Asia, even though the testimonies include everything that is Hindu-phobic and India-phobic.
Yes, indeed. And please try and share this video. You can definitely watch whatever you want. You have to understand that this is not Sri Iyer or Utsav talking. This is the entire community that we are concerned for. Why did anyone migrate to America? I'm talking about anyone. You come to America because you have a system that supports meritocracy, as a fair sense of justice, and a government that functions. And there are no bounds on how far you can progress in life. And these are the things that are being attacked. And this is not going to stop here. It's going to go worse and worse. But ultimately, what you have to look for is, what is the basis of this? The basis itself is very rickety. There is just, it's full of holes. When there is a competing survey or a survey that is much more scientific, they don't even want to bring that thing into the mainstream light. Somehow want to suppress it. They want to submarine their resolution at the very last minute, so nobody will even come to know what it is. And suddenly a group just meets and then votes on it. I mean, I have to question many of the members in California or Seattle. Aren't you guys lawyers? Don't you understand that if you legislate a flawed legislation, and if somebody successfully sues you for it and then sues you for compensatory and punitive damages, that you as a city, you will be liable, and the city will have to pay all this money back to the person who successfully wins the case. These things have happened. It's not like you can delay it forever. The cases do conclude and the city ends up paying the bill. So you have to be really, really judicious. You have to apply your mind. Like, for example, I'll give you a simple example. On 4th April, when there were 250 plus, in fact, there were much more than that, people protesting there, and all they wanted to know was to have a couple of minutes of time with this state senator, AISHA WAHAB. And you know what happened? They locked the door, and we don't even know if they were inside or not. And they wait, and this video is on Twitter. You can look at it. They waited and waited and waited. Come on, many of them were really incensed because they said, we voted for you, and you don't even want to listen to us. So what it is they know they are doing something wrong. They know they are painting around the edges of the law, and yet they want to somehow steamroll this thing through. And one has to wonder, what is the real intent behind this? And I think Utsav has very clearly demonstrated what it is. And your children's future is at risk, guys. I mean, it's too late afterwards to say, oh, I should have opposed before. Today is the day you have to stand up for your rights. If tomorrow might be too late, that is our concern. And I think let me see if there are any questions. Yeah, go ahead and have some questions, please. There are a few questions. Utsav, you are muted.
Yeah.
Abhinag wants to know, why no mention pasmanda Muslim Dalit Christians by the Pakistani American AISHA WAHAB? She is not Pakistani, she is Afghanistani. Sanatanis must move to conservative states. No, it doesn't. You cannot move from anywhere, Abhi. Come on now. What are you talking about? I am going to be here. I'm going to die here, and I'm going to fight till my
Abhi, the problem here is that we have to stop this mentality of moving. You cannot keep running from issues because somebody has more power and somebody has more more toxicity than you are willing to fight. So please do not, this is what happened to our ancestors in the Indian subcontinent. They were forced to move from Pakistan, they were forced to move from Bangladesh. So you cannot keep running like this. At some point you have to stop. And if you want to look at an example, just look at the Jewish community. They decided at some point they had to stop and fight back. So please, Abhi, we should not be moving to any state. We have to fight for our rights, and we have to bring in the right perspectives. And eventually we are powerful enough. If we really put our minds to it and our resources to it, we are powerful enough to do the right thing. It's just a question of implementing what you are capable of.
Next question, please. Hari Nam wants to know, why do we not report these actors to FBI? What makes you think people have not reported, Hari? They have all the data. You think that when people stand in the street that FBI is not watching? There are so many CCTV evidences. Look, there is nothing to be afraid of, and the FBI knows what is going on, and they will act. They are going to act. We have to wait and see how long it takes before they act. Utsav, you want to say something?
Yes. So I completely agree with Sri that I'm pretty sure the FBI is fully aware of what's going on. The Department of Homeland Security is fully aware of what's going on. They have so much to deal with. India and Indian Americans are just one aspect of what's going on. But I'm 100% sure that they are fully aware. And I think they know more than we do. So what you are seeing, is information that is out in the social media, that's out in the open source. I'm 100% sure that FBI knows far more than what is available in the open source. So, they know what's going on. And trust me, 10 years ago, there was a person named Ghulam Nabi Fai who went to jail for these kinds of activities. So, be hopeful.
Sri Harsha Namuduri wants to know, Utsavji, are Hindus very late in this game now? Per you, is Indian government not bothered about this?
So Sri Harsha, I would say that Hindus are a little late into this, this is not the time to look back and wonder why we are late. Obviously there was a period of about 10-15 years between 2002 to 2015 and 16 when we could have done far more. We could have organized far better and focused on these things in America. So I do believe we are a little late. But when it comes to the Indian government, that's something that the Indian government has to deal with. Because for Indian government, it is a foreign policy issue. For us, it is our issue. We are in America. We are the taxpayers here. Our future lies in this country, and we have to work within the American system to bring up our rights, just like anybody else is doing. So I think bringing the Indian government into this doesn't help our cause, actually. Indian government will do what it can do as a foreign policy, from its foreign policy posture, but it's our fight. There are 4.5 million Indian Americans and Hindu Americans. That's not a small number. So why do we have to look at the Indian government? It is our future in this country. We are the voters. We are the taxpayers, and pretty rich taxpayers, trust me. So let's organize and do our part.
1% of the population pays 6% of the net taxes collected by the US government. That should give you an idea what is the power of Hindu Americans. And we have to start using that power. And there is no shirking away from that. 10% what is Dashama Bhagam. That is actually a Sanskrit word that Christians use in India to collect 10% of your wages after you have converted to Christianity. They say you have to give 10% of what you make. So none of us are being asked by our Hindu gurus say, oh, you have to give 10% to the thing. What happens usually is there is a way this is entwined into your life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, right? So to get moksha, you have to start doing some of these things. It's not codified in a way that this is the percentage that you have to give. It says you should do this thing. You should contribute to the society. So we have to go back to read our scriptures also. Many of us are ready to, absorb the latest technology. Why don't you look to the past to see how the future looks like? By the way, Sanatana Dharma has, survived thousands of conquests and it's still thriving. Just 2 cents. I'm sorry to go off on a tangent here. Next question from Arithmetic of Life. Sanatan Hindus are under attack from here, there, and everywhere. How to deal with this hate and prejudice? What is the solution? Your comments.
Organize, educate, and put your money where the mouth is. It's very simple. We have the ability to understand, identify, and find out what needs to be done to counter this. We have that ability. We do not have often the resources to do it, which is very sad because as a community, we are the richest community in America. So it's very ironic and sad at the same time. And number 3, more important, look forward. You can look back and feel sad for what has happened. We do learn from our history. And as she pointed out, it's important to do so. whether it is the civilizational history that we have in the Indian subcontinent and that part of the world, or whether it is our history in this country, America. But what needs to be done is look forward. Let's identify the places where we can actually succeed. What is stopping us? Last year I was personally involved very aggressively, and many people around our organization, we were involved in bringing a resolution on the 1971 genocide, a well documented genocide of 3 million Hindus. Why is it that there is not a single state in America that has passed a resolution recognize the 1971 genocide? We are doing frivolous resolutions like SB 403 based on fake surveys because we haven't acted upon it. As an organization, as an individual, we did bring it in the US Congress, but this is something that you can do in your own state. Our community loves to take pictures with their elected officials. Trust me. I look at my Facebook posts, half the friends I have are well connected to their congressmen, to their state senators. They would love to. I'm 100% sure there are thousands of Indian Americans in the Fremont and the Mountain Valley area who have taken pictures with Ms. Wahab, who brought this resolution and posted it on their Facebook. But we are not influencing them by being vocal.
I was talking to a gentleman who was her professor in Cal State Hayward. So now I'm even giving you the name of the university where she went, California State University at Hayward. And he said, until she became what she is now, she used to really, really listen to, and what a model person. And he says, I don't know who this person is. So this should give you an idea that people who, kick the ladder on which they go up, when they come down, there is no support system. You fall flat and hard. If Aisha had moved a resolution for the freedom of Afghanistan women, I would be one of the first to sign up behind her. By the way, PGurus is very, very, very a-religious. We support all freedom of right for everyone to live peacefully and harmoniously. Who has done in-depth research on Uyghur Muslims? We have. I have done tons of interviews. And same for the Sikhs, same for Christians. Okay, so don't put suddenly, because that will come next. I can tell you the same swine will start tweeting out that, this guy is a Hindu supremacist or some BS like that. But the record is there in front of me. And you can go back and look at PGurus videos. You will know that it's never on one cause. This is what I'm right now seeing is a complete blanketing of a one-sided narrative, completely filled with lies. That is what is really, really jarring here. I'm sorry to just keep taking time on this one. Next question from Sriharsha Namudri. I still see that some Hindus do think that caste-based rules are good in the US out of their goodwill without realizing that this will profile Hindus alone and will open the doors of mental colonization.
I agree with you, Sriharsha. I believe that this is a fault line that has been very carefully chosen. So if you look at the different actors who are anti-India in US, from Audrey Truschke to you name it, they used to be talking about other issues over the last 5-6 years. They were with CAA, there was this, there was that, there was Kashmir, Article 370. All have been moved away from those narratives, and all are now talking about the caste narrative, including Ashok Swain, who Shri mentioned. The reason is very simple. This is a fault line that they have identified puts Indians and Hindu Americans on the blind spot. So I agree with you, Sriharsha. Indians and Hindu Americans have a blind spot on the word caste. And they get confused. They don't know how to react to it. And that is why this is being brought up, because it is a successful fault line that they can use against us and our future generations.
Jayashree Esra, what are the stages of legislation in USA?
So you can see that they started by going at the lowest hanging fruits, which is universities and campuses where they have the most power, where the radical Islamists, the Khalistanis, the overall violent left has more power. And they started in the universities. First, they got it approved or recognized at that level, so the narrative gets seeded. The next stage that they did was go after cities where they have good power. So city of Seattle, openly pro-Maoist city council member Shama Sawant. So that level of ideological divergence from India, they found individuals who would be supporting that. They legitimize it at a city level. Now they are bringing it in the state legislature, which is in California, which is one of the most powerful states in the country, with the highest, one of the highest number of Indian American and South Asian American population segments. So they are now going to do it at the state level, and then would come approval at the state level, and then would come the federal level or other states. So they are moving in a way where they're using the lowest hanging fruit to get it seeded and legitimized, then using that as a case study to get it legitimized at the next level, and then at the next level, until they reach the corporate world and the federal level. And this is now happening across the country. I mean, look at places like Google, look at Apple. Just out of fear of being called discriminatory, they are now going to start using the word caste very quickly in their policies on non-discrimination, just out of fear. So they are already succeeding in seeding this word in America, and I think that's where the problem is.
Sriharsha Nambudri, Sriji, is there a website, PGurus, COHNA, HIPAC, where the Hindu arguments against this caste-based law are documented or being shared widely? Yes, COHNA has a website, HIPAC has a website, and PGurus has pgurus.com. You can, I mean, we have been writing about this for years. How, the varna, the caste, or there is no caste ever in India, okay? Don't confuse caste with jati, because they try to shoehorn you all these things into all these things. Don't fall for it. Just say there is no caste in India. You just make it up. Same thing. There's a new one they're calling. They don't want Shudras. They're trying to get fifth one. I don't remember what the name is. There is Kshatriya, Brahmin, Vaishya, and Shudra, and then there's a fifth one they want to call now. So all these are all misappropriations and selective quoting of narratives and no basis. Okay. And I can show you basis for where the four different vibhajans in the society all used to prosper. I have proof. We have gone back to books where they have taken it from stone inscriptions, going back 10th century, 8th century, 9th century. Okay, so there is a copious amount of proof. What it is you need to get off of your rather white bottom, sorry to say this thing, and indulge in reading some of these things so that you're properly armed. Because you could get ambushed in your next job interview. Please understand this. You may be the most qualified person, but do you want to get disqualified because of this? That is the question that you need to ask yourself. This is just my 2 cents. I'm done for seeking job in the industry. But for those of you who still have active years left in you, you need to understand that this is a weaponization of your own dharma against you. That's what makes it harder. And it's all done based on lies. That's the other bigger problem. But in order for you to point out the lies, you need to know what you need to know. That is the point and the message that Utsav and I are giving. Utsav, 2 words from you in conclusion. I'm sorry I'm kind of jumping into this and giving my spiel. You should be the one doing the
No.
talking.
This is important. This is important. Look, one good thing that is happening with these kinds of resolutions and is that there is a convergence of different Hindu organizations, Hindu groups, whether it is organizations like HAF, who have very good efforts that they're putting into lawfare. They're trying to fight legal cases on this. Whether it is organizations like COHNA that have a very significant presence in the grassroots in California, whether it is organizations like Hindu Action, we are mostly East Coast DC based, but also in the Midwest, who are trying to complement efforts that are being done by COHNA and HAF so as to bolster the effort as a community. So that is happening, that unity is coming at some level. What is important is that more and more masses connect with us. We are going to share our resources and we are going to share our efforts and we are going to find our own. So if HAF is looking at one thing, COHNA is looking at another thing, Hindu Action is going to look at another thing, so that we all converge into a comprehensive effort to counter and defeat these things. Join us and help us as much as you can, because if we are what we are able to do what we are able to do because of people like who are our listeners here, who are in America. Individuals, we are nothing. I mean, she spends 24/7 doing this. I spend 24/7 doing this. But still, it's just one person. It's 2 of us. If you join us in our efforts, if you help us with resources, we need the resources. I have to feed my family and my kids. So if you help us, we are going to be much more effective. And our team will grow. and we will get newer ideas, because our brains can only function so far. Your ideas, your support, your efforts will bring us to the next level. So do help us, work with us.
I couldn't have put it better myself, Utsav. Thank you so much. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Get this particular video out there. It's got all the facts about what is the real intent, who are the real funders, and this is now black and white. Nobody's even hiding. The fact that Soros is now coming out and saying that he was not behind the Trump indictment tells you that they've run out of all ammunitions. When the instigator himself comes out and says that I had nothing to do with it, that means that they are now scraping the bottom of the barrel. That is the point. We are not very far away from breaking down this entire operation. But for that, we all have to speak with one voice and stand as one. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much, Utsav. Take care of your health. And we'll be back again very, very soon. Namaskar.
Namaste.